Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pollination Podcast. Today, I'm going to be sharing how the government shutdown is affecting both my own commercial apiary and how it's impacting the industry as a whole. When most people hear the term government shutdown, they may think about federal employees being furloughed or national parks closing. But few people realize that a government shutdown hits agriculture too, and for beekeepers, the effects can be surprisingly deep. Every year, Congress has to pass bills to fund the federal government. When those bills don't get passed in time, agencies lose their legal authority to spend money except for essential services. The result is that a lot of departments, including big ones like the USDA, fully or partially close. Employees are furloughed, offices go dark, and services pause until Congress passes a new budget. For the USDA alone, we're talking about over 40,000 employees being furloughed out of about 85,000 total. That's nearly half the workforce. When you start thinking about how many programs, labs, inspectors, and service centers that affects, it's no wonder that the agricultural world starts to feel the effects immediately. Now, the tricky part for beekeepers is that while most of us don't walk into a federal office every week, we depend heavily on programs, labs, and systems that live under the USDA umbrella, even if we don't think about it very much. The USDA, and especially the Farm Service Agency, or the FSA, plays a huge role in American agriculture. They process loans, handle disaster assistance programs, and keep crucial safety nets running for farms and beekeepers alike. Programs like ELAP, or the Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, and Farm-Raised Fish program, are being impacted. If you've ever used it, you know it helps cover losses due to things like drought, cold snaps, wildfire smokes, and even colony collapse disorder. When there's a shutdown, ELAP basically freezes. County FSA offices can't process claims, they can't issue payments, and they can't even answer calls most of the time. For commercial or sideliner beekeepers, that can mean weeks or months without reimbursement for feed costs or dead outs. Then there's the USDA Bee Research Labs. They're part of the Agricultural Research Service, and when the government shuts down, that research stops cold. Diagnostic testing paused. Data collection stopped. Active research on varroa mite resistant, nutrition, and viruses delayed indefinitely. That may sound minor for a few weeks, but here's the thing. Research is cumulative. When a shutdown drags on, it interrupts long-term experiments and field trials, sometimes ruining months of data. That means fewer updates for beekeepers, slower progress in understanding diseases, and delays in new treatment options. The USDA Bee Research Labs are a cornerstone of bee health in the U.S. They're the people studying everything from the molecular biology of viruses to the effects of pesticides, nutrition, and genetics. They also provide diagnostic services, meaning if you send in samples of bees with symptoms, they can test for nosema, viruses, or pesticide residues. During a shutdown, those labs aren't allowed to process samples or publish findings. That's a big deal for beekeepers trying to diagnose a problem before it spreads. Think about it. If you've suddenly got a huge die-off and suspect a pathogen, every day matters. Waiting weeks because a lab's email auto-replies, "Sorry, we're closed now due to the shutdown," can be absolutely devastating. That goes for collaborative research. Universities also depend on data for grants connected to USDA partnerships. So when those stop, it doesn't just affect one lab. It ripples through the entire beekeeping research community. It's not an exaggeration to say that a prolonged shutdown sets bee science back by months and sometimes even years. It's easy to think that beekeeping is an independent business. We can just ride out a storm on our own. But the truth is, modern beekeeping is deeply connected to agricultural systems and government programs. When those systems freeze up, so do we. Most of us in beekeeping don't exactly operate with huge margins. Between feed costs, replacement queens, transportation, and mite treatments, even small delays in income can hurt. Every year, I rely on my annual crop loan through the FSA to keep things moving between seasons. That loan allows me to buy syrup, to feed my colonies, and get them ready for almond pollination in California, one of the biggest and most important events in the pollination world. But right now, I can't access that loan. It's frozen because of the stinking shutdown. That means I can't buy the syrup I need, and without it, I can't build my colonies up to the strength and time for almond contracts. Every week of delays weakens the bees, shortens the windows for growth, and risks the livelihood of my own operation. I also can't receive my existing ELAB funds for colonies that I've already lost. And on top of that, my NAP funds, that's Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program, which helps offset losses from reduced honey production, are also stuck in limbo. So right now, I'm sitting here with higher expenses because of the drought, lower income from reduced honey yields, no access to my crop loan, and no way to get a disaster assistance. That's the reality a lot of us are living through. And I'm not the only one feeling this. This shutdown is affecting beekeepers everywhere, from backyard hobbyists to the largest commercial operations that move thousands of hives every single season. For smaller beekeepers, programs like ELAP and NAP can mean the difference between surviving a tough year and losing everything. Without them, a single drought or hurricane can be devastating, but for commercial beekeepers, the impact can ripple through the entire agricultural system. Most commercial operations depend on steady credit lines and tight seasonal schedules. The bees have to be fed, medicated, and transported right on time, whether it's to the almonds or blueberries or following the next nectar flow to maximize honey yields. When the FSA shuts down, it's not just about missing a deadline. It's about losing access to the operating loans that make those moves possible. Here's what that looks like across the country. Beekeepers preparing for almond pollination can't buy syrup or protein patties, which means weaker colonies and fewer hives making the trip to California. Producers in drought-stricken regions can't apply for ELAP reimbursement, forcing them to shoulder all of those feed costs alone. Beekeepers relying on FSA-backed loans can't get renewals processed, leaving them without working capital right when they need it the most. Newer operations, trying to expand, can't get their beginning farm loans approved, putting their growth plans on hold. And the backlog that builds up while offices are closed means long delays even after the shutdown ends. All of that adds stress to an industry that's already fighting mites, unpredictable weather, and unstable honey markets. These programs aren't handouts. They're the infrastructure that keeps the agricultural system functional. When that system stops, the consequences reach all the way from hobbyist right into the commercial industry. And beyond the numbers and logistics, there's a real emotional toll. It's hard watching colonies suffer, knowing exactly what they need and not being able to get it to them because the funding is locked in some office you can't reach. It's stressful watching the weather stay dry, knowing the next nectar or pollen flow may or may not come, and you've got no way to claim the losses. And it's frustrating feeling like beekeepers who already work in one of the most unpredictable industries there is are being put in an even tougher position because of politics completely out of our control. At the end of the day, the bees don't care about government shutdowns. They don't stop eating. They don't stop flying. They don't wait for Congress to sort things out. They live or they die. That's it. Period. I don't like to bring politics into this podcast. That's not what this channel is for. But this situation isn't solely political. It's having actual real-world consequences on my life and the lives of other people in a significantly negative way. It's impacting the very real people who make up our food system, the farmers, the ranchers, and the beekeepers who depend on programs like these to keep things moving forward. When the government shuts down, it doesn't just affect bureaucrats in D.C. It affects real people, our bees, our livelihoods, and the food supply that is critical for our own survival. Beekeepers are resilient. We deal with droughts, floods, mites, bears, and bad markets. But one thing we can't play around with is government inaction. When the programs we rely on suddenly freeze, we're forced into tough choices. Do we take on debt to feed the bees, delay equipment orders, skip requeening to save cash? That stress is real, especially for small and mid-scale operations that can absorb thousands of dollars in delayed payments. It also is worth noting that many of the USDA employees who work in bee research or farm programs are also passionate about what they do. That when they're furloughed, it's not because they don't want to help. They literally can't work. It's frustrating on both sides. The shutdown really exposes how dependent modern agriculture and beekeeping in particular has become on federal infrastructure. We're talking about everything from insurance programs to data collection, from scientific collaboration to regulatory stability. Without that, the system becomes fragile. It also reminds us that we, as beekeepers, need to keep pushing for resilience. There's also a larger question. Should the beekeeping industry diversify its own safety nets? Right now, a lot of our risk protection is tied to government programs. Maybe we need more private or cooperative insurance models for hive losses. Maybe more state level support or industry funded labs could fill some gaps. The shutdown doesn't just pause our program, it shines a light on the weaknesses of our own industry. The good news is that most shutdowns are temporary. Eventually, Congress passes a budget, offices reopen, and work resumes. But each time this happens, the backlog grows, and the trust in the system gets weaker. The question is, how many times can we do this before it starts doing long-term damage? For beekeepers, it's a reminder to document everything, stay connected with local associations, and plan financially for unpredictability. If there's a recurring theme here, it's that beekeeping, like democracy, requires patience, cooperation, and persistence. The bees can't function if the hive stops working together, and neither can we. Thank you for tuning into the Pollination Podcast. My name is Matthew Walker, owner of Walk in the Woods Apiary. I hope I have answered some of your beekeeping questions. Please leave your comments down below. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please reach out to me at thepollinationpodcast@gmail.com.